This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook, and I'm here at the 2017 United in Compassion, UIC, conference in Melbourne. I'm here sitting with nurse Leah Bisiani. Leah, welcome to FX Medicine.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Leah, I first want to ask a little bit about your history, because you have a long career.
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this?
Well, most of my career hasn't had anything to do with medicinal cannabis. I'm a dementia consultant, so I have a master's in health science, and all of my clinical research has been in regards to people living with dementia and changing the negative stereotypical viewpoints and cultures and philosophies of care related to people living with dementia. And then I became interested in the medicinal cannabis area because working in aged care, you see a significant amount of people living in chronic, debilitating, excruciating pain.
And indeed, that's a massive area, one in which I get rather hoity-toity about it, because we like to seem as though it's a very caring environment, but the practicalities of what happens is you see patients that are over-medicated and yet still in pain.
That's the problem. And what we've identified is that with current medication regimes for people that are living in chronic pain for 20 to 30 years of their life, which is an extremely long time to live in that level of, or have that level of suffering, and it's a very unfair... No, see, I'm going to stop now. I'll stop myself for a minute, okay? So people that live in this, with this level of suffering, are not having their pain alleviated by the current traditional regimes. We've looked at the figures, and 73% of elderly people in residential aged care are on opioid regimes, and with that comes a whole load of adjuvant medications because of all the side effects and the adverse effects of the opioids.
Yep.
And with all those adjuvant medications come a whole new lot of side effects that actually destroy lifestyle and well-being and don't manage the pain of 73% of the people that are on these regimes.
So it's creating a polypharmacy effect where they're cycling at a lower...
Polypharmacy effect, cascading effects, and also the decline in quality of life is quite dramatic. So people actually become debilitated and deteriorate at a much more rapid rate because of this polypharmacy and the gross amounts of opioids that they're on that aren't actually alleviating their pain. So an alternative needs to be looked at. In this day and age, there is no excuse for people to be in pain. There are other alternatives, and ones that are much less destructive to quality of life. So to actually be observing people suffering for as long as I have in this area, and to also be part of a revolution in which we can actually change the face of pain management in aged care is a very exciting prospect. My entire life has been about doing clinical research that actually bases my theories and challenges the medical model in regards to duty of care and the Hippocratic Oath of not creating harm. So we don't want to be creating a harmful situation for people, and that's exactly what we're doing with the opioid regimes and all the other medications and the polypharmacy that goes with it.
I want to go back in time, your career.
Yeah, right.
What was it at the very beginning of your career when cannabis really was not on the spectrum?
No, not
then?
at all.
What was it back there that you thought, and I have to use the word, screw this, we need to change? And how was that met when you first started to do research?
As a young nurse, I didn't have much clout. I still had a big voice, and I was still as opinionated as I am now. Yeah. However, I was told that if I didn't like what I was seeing, I could leave.
Really? That was it?
So back then, I mean, you're looking at 35 years ago, there weren't many regulations in place in regards to aged care. The accreditation was but a little fly in the sky by then, and there weren't any frameworks in place to protect elderly people. And this is where a lot of the negative stereotypical viewpoints came from. But I was hit in the face by it, because when I finished my nursing, when I graduated, I went into aged care and I was horrified with what I saw, because all I saw was gross neglect. And people living with dementia were the ones that were neglected more so, because people seem to think that people with dementia lose their humanity because they have a cognitive deficit. So it was basically locking people up and in environments where they were understimulated, drugged to the eyeballs. Chemical restraint was very big, so was physical restraint. And I didn't think that was a very caring attitude for people that were meant to be caregivers.
That's right. Indeed, one must cover that topic with regards to staffing issues of both doctors and nurses, and indeed ENs and other carers. If we employed medical cannabis and woke these people up, heaven forbid, they might be alive and walking around or interacting. So what sort of flow-on effect will this have?
Look, it's going to be a very interesting and groundbreaking area, I believe. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put my hand up to actually be part of this revolution. Well, you know, the models of care that I set up for people living with dementia actually effectively reduces all medication. So you don't even need to medicate people at all if you understand their needs so specifically, and as an individual in their own right, and continue their life as they know it. The problem people have with people living with dementia is that they view it from a cognitive viewpoint. When you're caring for people, you need to actually see it through their eyes. So when I do my clinical research on people living with dementia, I write on their behalf. I don't write from the judgmental viewpoints and the very stereotypical viewpoints that have been associated with dementia for far too long. So I turn it on its axis, and I show people that if we see life through the eyes of the people we're caring for, we can actually enter their reality with them and give them companionship in a reality where they would otherwise be alone. And that's where the problem lies, because we isolate people within that reality by not actually empathising and being compassionate enough to understand what they're going through. We basically judge it only on a cognitive viewpoint.
When we're looking at what cannabis can do for this population, I think the first question I have to ask is about them, their acceptance of cannabis. You know, we're coming from an age group that was brought up in the days that cannabis was injected.
You're right.
So,
the immediate leap into heroin addiction. That's right.
So what has been the acceptance when people actually do employ cannabis?
Well, at this stage, in residential aged care in Australia, we're not using cannabis. Hence, and because we're looking at pain as the first area that we're going to be concentrating on, because of the need basis and the fact that these people are living in excruciating pain for so long, I think that they are pretty much open to an alternative so that their suffering can be alleviated. They're living in so much anguish for so long that anything that is provided can't be any worse than an opioid. The risk factors associated with opioids are much higher than those associated with medicinal cannabis. We know that.
Yeah.
The greatest risk factor of opioids is fatality. Now, we can't actually compare that, can we? Because what we're looking at is something that can create death and debility to a product that will manage pain, reduce polypharmacy, allow these people to have a much better quality of life, which is what it's meant to be about, meet our duty of care in a compassionate and empathetic way, and give them their life back, which no one deserves anything less at this time of their life. And because of medical technology, we keep people alive for much longer. I mean, that's an evolutionary process as well. So we live longer each generation, but we keep people alive for longer. So if we're doing that, we need to alleviate any suffering they have related to any conditions they have when they get older. I mean, old age isn't for sissies.
No, that's right. One of the most heartening things that I saw in yesterday's training delivered by Associate Professor David Caldecott.
Yep.
Wow. But one of the most heartwarming parts of that training was the mini movie that he showed with the Italian lady being given vaping.
Okay.
Where she opened her hand and there was
For the first
the
time.
vestiges of a smile.
Yeah.
That sudden enlightenment of,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm here.
I know. I mean, it's all good to say we'll collect all this data, and that type of qualitative type of research is crucial, but the quantitative stuff that you actually see, the difference that you can make to the lives of, that's the reward that you get from creating change. That is what inspires us to be a better version of ourselves every day, to help people, because we are here to benefit humanity, not destroy it. So anyone in the caregiving industry who actually condones the ongoing suffering of another, I consider that neglect.
How far away, given that you're now involved in research and development with a commercial cannabis company, how far are we away with interventional studies?
We're ready to start our clinical trial. Yeah.
And given
we've
that...
got everything, all our ducks are lined up.
Yeah.
We have cultivation and manufacturing. We have aged care, residential aged care organisations that I've worked with for the last 30 years. We have 3 of the main Australian-based organisations who have already provided their support. We have another company, I was going to say their name then, who are a clinical pharmacology company who have a wonderful, wonderful group of people who have allowed us to design a scientific formula for a pain relief product.
Yep.
And we will be looking at the biological profile of each person that we provide that for. So we're ready to do our clinical trial. We've done our research, so that was the prelude, that was our data to support the need basis. We identified the problem, we're now giving them the solution.
So you're a nurse, I'm a nurse.
Yes.
What's your call out to nurses?
Stick up for people's rights, make a stand. Because if you condone the ongoing suffering of others, then that is actually condoning the ongoing neglect, and that is not the code that nurses and healthcare professionals should ever follow. Our only code is to benefit humanity.
Thanks, Leah Bisiani. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook.
And this is Leah Bisiani.